Yo, what up, Street Talks there, Kim? All right, some turbo thoughts on street photography. So, this is just advice I wish that I could have gave myself if I started street photography all over again. Certainly, this is just based on my experiences and my personal knowledges, not really what is ultimate and true. So, first and foremost, I really think that street photography is more of an ethos and an approach than the thing itself, which means to think about life and to approach life like a street photographer. I kind of like it. Like, you got like different like identities, like, oh, I do like streetwear, or I travel, or I'm a digital nomad, whatever have you, before COVID. But the notion of being a street photographer is quite a cool identity, I think, because typically people who are into street photography, we like people, we like to interact with people, we like to be out and about, we don't like just staying at home. We have a hunger and thirst for adventure. And so it takes a certain type of person to be interested in street photography. We like experiences more than stuff. And so there's this whole ethos behind street photography, which I think is overall good. And so a lot of people tend to focus on, oh, is this street photography? Is this not street photography? But I think that's the wrong question. I think a better thing is to think, and to meditate, why do I love street photography so much? And what is it about my personality and my worldviews and my personal ethos that I love about street photography? And so for me, I think perhaps to extract the personal maximum out of existence in life is to approach street photography, because inherent in street photography is our love of, traveling and pushing ourselves outside our comfort zone. And, a lot of people were into designer things and watches and cars and clothes, whatever. But ultimately, there's nothing more fascinating and beautiful than a human being or human beings. And so even studying sociology as an undergrad was probably the best benefit I did in my life, and even just like my photographic thinking, because street photography is essentially applied sociology. I explore the world and interact with people and photograph people as they live with my camera as a form of personal documentation, to try to make sense of all of it and to make things interesting for me. And also, I think it's important in street photography to not just think that street photography has to be done candidly without permission. I think the biggest detriment to street photographers, especially when you're starting off, is thinking, oh, I can't interact with my subjects, I have to be super stealth-like, low-key, whatever. But I think often to provoke your subjects and to interact and engage with them, or even asking for permission is good. I like to think of street photography kind of like your Batman. You got your utility belt. You're not going to use your grappling hook for all situations. Sometimes you want to use like your Bat Ninja Star. Sometimes you want to jump in the Batmobile. Sometimes you want to jump in the Bat plane or whatever have you. And so, same thing if you're a chef, right? Like if you're a Chef Gordon Ramsay, you don't use a paring knife for everything, nor do you use like a butcher's knife for everything. There are different tools and techniques for different situations. And so I kind of like the idea of you becoming an uber versatile, kind of like a Swiss Army knife type street photographer, where given the situation at hand, you can make interesting photos. Also, I do think that at the end of the day, this is just my personal take. I prefer black and white street photography because it just allows for more photographic opportunities. I think in some ways, color street photography is far more difficult, because if you don't have good light, if you don't have good colors, color street photography is much more difficult to make interesting color street photographs than black and white street photographs. And for me, as time goes on, I'm less interested with making good photos. I'm more interested in just like entertaining myself and having fun with it. And I know that I personally get the most depressed in photography when I no longer see any opportunities. And so what I'm actually trying to do in my street photography is to expand my visual palette and photograph more things. And so even when it comes to street photography, I don't think you just have to photograph people. Like I'm currently in the burbs right now, photographing like urban landscapes, cars that are parked with the covers on, kind of more abstract photos. I've been shooting a lot with the GR3 exposure compensation, like -1, -2, -3, and trying to make kind of more abstract street photos of anything I see. And so in this way, it's better to think of yourself like a visual artist than just a quote street photographer, because when you start using the street photographer label, we tend to be trapped in a singular way of thinking about street photography, which I think is often more detrimental to us. Other thing is, just kind of thinking that any opportunity is a good opportunity to get out of the house and do anything. So we're often taught it's more virtuous to stay at home, eat at home, don't go out, blah, blah. But anytime you go to the bar, to the club, to the local Costco, grocery store, try to harness any single activity and opportunity you have leaving the house to do street photography. And so, you could even shoot street photography at like Walmart, or, obviously on the streets or in your neighborhood. And in terms of camera and equipment, I do think that the Ricoh GR3 I currently have in my pocket with the Aircam Wrist Strap Mark II is really probably the best camera for street photography at the moment. I mean, because cameras are always getting outdated and stuff like that, perhaps best to just think the best camera for street photography is probably just the newest Ricoh GR camera. I think it's still superior than the Leica M camera, Fuji, anything out there, even better than the iPhone, because the Ricoh GR3 is only marginally bigger than the iPhone, actually even cheaper than the new Pro or whatever. And just it's better to have a physical button. It's compact, if you can shoot with one hand, and also the image quality, the sharpness, the depth, the image gradation, everything on the Ricoh GR3 is probably 10 times better than the iPhone, even though the iPhone is a great camera and a great capable tool. So that's also useful. And I think, it's this is just based on my experiences, but if you're curious about any other cameras, shooting film, different formats, I do encourage you to experiment with everything. And I think it's okay to quote waste money on photography. It's our creative pursuit. Better to drop 50 grand on camera equipment and experiences and travel and stuff like that and photo books than to just like buy, I don't know, a Mercedes or a BMW or whatever have you. And even, I think it's better to invest your money and time in your life in pursuing photographs, photography related things, travel, your education, workshops, experiences, than even buying a house. I don't currently own a car. I don't own a home. What I'm just mostly interested in right now is to make photos, to explore, to do more, become more, and experience more. And so realize that photography and street photography is a never-ending life journey. And the goal is to be motivated to shoot street photography until you die, hopefully at age 120.